Welcome, listeners. Welcome, viewers. It's Adrian here from Arcade Attack, and we've got an amazing guest on today's show. Just before I introduce him, we've got James here as well. James is helping me
How you
on
doing,
the
everyone?
co-hosting duties. We've got an amazing guest, someone we wanted on the show for many, many years. We're big fans of your games, and we've got Cliff Bleszinski here. Gears of War legend, Jazz Jackrabbit, Unreal games. I mean, these are games that have made our childhood. We're still playing today. So, Cliff, thank you for your time today. It really is appreciated.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for harassing me on Twitter so much, you fucking bellends.
Yeah, sorry about that.
We actually covered Gears of War a couple of years ago now, and since then, after we played the game, loved the game, and James, huge fan, we just think we want to we'd love to get this guy on the show. We kind of targeted you a little bit on Twitter, so thank you so much for finally,
No, it's totally all good. Like, I've just been having a little bit of a low profile these days because I don't know. It's just I've made just enough money to be comfortable to not have to deal with dickheads online. So
hopefully
there's a lot of them around.
Unfortunately, yeah, we'll see what you think of us in an hour or so. But honestly, it is an honor having you here. Let's talk right at the start then, because Cliff, you've had an amazing career in games and beyond, obviously, but how did you sort of first get your opportunity to work at Epic Games? And obviously, Jazz Jackrabbit came quite soon after. Can you sort of go through the really early days and how that kind of came about?
Yeah, so I started making games on my Apple IIc back in the day. My father bought it for my older brother, but he was too busy finger blasting girls in the woods. So I took to it like a fish to water. And then eventually I got an IBM 386SX. And I made my first game, which was my first legit game, which was an adventure game called The Palace of Deceit, which is kind of a point-and-click adventure. And that I started slinging that, as the drug dealers would say, out of my mom's house in California. And this was the shareware era, so I put out the demo, and then people would send me like $20-25 or something, and I started making money doing that. And then I started working on my next game after that, called Dare to Dream. I've always been big on dreaming. I believe that the human mind is a computer, and when we sleep, dreaming is the way of compiling the code of your life, because we're in the fucking Matrix. But yeah, and that Dare to Dream, was about a 10-year-old boy who's going through a lot, lost his father, blah blah blah, and it flopped. It was my first flop. Wouldn't be the last. And then I sent a version of it to Tim Sweeney at Epic Games, because I played Jill of the Jungle, and they said, call for developers at the end of it. And then I get a phone call from this boorish guy, Mark Rain, who's the VP there. And, for the record, he now has 19 fucking supercars, but good for him. And he's like, oh, we could redo the graphics, blah, 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 blah. We could add audio. Blah. I'm like, no, I'm already working on a new game that has higher resolution graphics and audio called Dare to Dream. And they then put Dare to Dream out. But after Dare to Dream flopped, Tim sent me this demo that was kind of a clone of that Amiga game called Turrican that was made by a Dutch programmer named Arjan Brisset. And basically what Tim Sweeney knew way back in the day, and still to this day knows, is give people, like creatives especially, better tools, and you'll get better content out of them. And the level editor was really easy to use. I had gotten decent at Deluxe Paint 2, and I'll never forget the magic that I felt when I got the first level kind of up and going with my own poorly animated version of the rabbit. And I felt like, like the scene in Castaway where he's like, I have made fire, or the scene from Almost Famous where he's on the roof and he's like, I'm a golden god.
Yeah.
And it was so empowering. And I knew I had something special, and I worked my ass off on it. And all of this, for the record, is in my book.
Yes, I've got my copy ordered.
Well, you didn't do your fucking homework, mate.
No, I didn't. But I'm looking forward to reading it, though.
I have to say, Cliff, I did love Jazz Jackrabbit growing up. I played it just before Sonics. It was my sort of, I had a PC at the time. I think it's a very fun game. And so did you think of the game? Were you sort of told about the idea, the concept? Were you given like free reign? How did that work?
I was just doing whatever the fuck I wanted to.
Nice.
I grew up in the 80s and, saw movies like Rambo and whatnot. And I was like, what about a Rambo rabbit? And like,
Yes.
what if Sonic the Hedgehog had a gun? Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, I was a workhorse back then. I was a beast. Now I sleep till noon and I'm like, fuck it. Let's go to the pub and read a book. And it's one of those things that I just, I think I was partially driven by anger because, back in the day I was picked on in middle school. And then my mother, once my dad died when I was 15, which you can read about in my book, my mother turned into a total like selfish sociopath narcissist. And she met a new man, got married to him and basically ignored me. And I was working at McDonald's at the time, going to school. I was in drama. I played the lead in like 3 plays. I was Mercutio and Romeo and Juliet. I was the lead in 10 Little Indians. I played Lenny in Neil Simon's Rumors. And that's also why I have no problem being in front of a crowd. In fact, I actually crave it. As Lady Gaga says, I live for the applause. And that's why I actually translated to be the kind of the face of Epic for many years, because I have no problem with it. And like I said, I actually enjoy it. And then I just busted my hump because my mother, living in Laverne, California, which is the Valley's Valley, she wouldn't run the goddamn air conditioning. And it was like 100 degrees in my room nonstop because I had two PCs running, and I was like sitting upstairs in boxers. That's all I was wearing. And she's like, open a window. I'm like, Mom, it's like a fucking oven out there. What the hell? And and so eventually, Jazz came out, made me just enough money to buy my first car and get my first apartment. And then I hoarded that air conditioning like it was a runaway. I leveraged it so much and slept until whenever the hell I wanted to. But then I got up and I continued to work my ass off. And actually, it's a fun fact. Before I finished Jazz, I was visiting with the musician I worked with, Robert Allen, in Northern California. And he had an early version of the Unreal Editor. And I started playing around with it there. And he's like, this is going to be big. Sorry, burping up breakfast. And here we are all these years later. Like in the Unreal Engine is the driving force behind so many games. Like I think that it's powering the upcoming Hellraiser game, which looks really, really good, by the way.
Well, we've just been talking about that, which is which is incredible. I mean, there's if I may just go back to Jazz just for a second, purely because there's a couple of things. The soundtrack is great, it's fantastic. But also the other thing is as well, and we take this for granted these days as well. Smooth and kind of flicker-free gaming. But that's what it was, and it was so smooth and so kind of like great to look at. So in terms of, I know Adrian played it obviously quite a bit back in the day. I haven't had the pleasure of, but I'm definitely going to go back and play it now. But I've had a good look into it. But yeah, the smoothness and the colors as well is amazing.
The thing is, Ariane Brisset, he, for lack of a better term, was a frame rate Nazi. He always wanted to make sure like the frame rate was great. That was just a huge pet peeve of his. And I remember somebody from Ubisoft a while back had like some stupid comment they made where they're like, 24 frames is fine. I'm like, what? This is it's an interactive medium, you idiot. Like, you want the highest frame rate imaginable. And Ariane came out of the demo scene where it was this thing that largely originated, I think it was in Sweden or something. I can't recall. But they basically would get together, a group named like Assembly and whatnot, and they would, with the smallest amount of code was the challenge to do the most graphically interesting thing possible. And it was such an amazing movement, and it created, it forged so many incredible programmers out of that. And he and I vibed really well. And, as you could say, he was the DJ, I was the rapper. And, then Nick Stadler came on board and actually, knew how to animate and animated Jazz, did the comic book that was in the instruction manual, which I still miss instruction manuals, by the way. I can still smell them to this day.
So do we. We love that.
It's a lost art. My friends over at Limited Run Games are having great success by actually doing physical media versions of games because, we live in the games as service era, which I hate, where, the publisher pulls the plug and boom, your game's gone forever. And, there's the old saying, the more things go digital, the more people cling to analog. I mean, you look at vinyl, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. But jazz. I remember I got my first check for it for $5,000, $5,000, and this is 1994. So that was probably like 20 grand money in this day and age. And I went to the mall and I tried to spend as much of it as I could, and which was completely stupid. And then I realized I had to pay taxes on it. Well, the fun fact about Jazz also is that I was an independent contractor with Epic at that time. And now that Jazz is on GOG.com, good old games, DRM free, etc. I still occasionally, like once a quarter, get a check for a few grand from it.
Oh, that's great.
Like some bell end comes at me on Twitter. I'm like, bitch, I'm making money from a game I made in 1994, motherfucker. Like, what have you done? What have you done lately?
Well, talking about that was a nice little segue. But so looking at the early stuff, so you had point and click, you got platform. So where did FPS come from with Unreal then? Where did that transition kind of jump out?
Well, this is right. Tim Sweeney had what I called back in the day id Envy. Id Software, which for the record, my wife worked there for a while. She worked with John Carmack and didn't know what a legend he was. I was like, he's fucking Carmack. Carmack's like giving her a version of Doom on the iPhone and be like, test this for me. And she's like, okay. And the thing is, she's actually Twitch streaming right now. She's been steadily going at that for a year and a half now. But then we loved Wolfenstein, and then Doom came out, and we realized the future was 3D, at least for the time being, because, now for me, at least, the only games that I play are like retro platformers. I recently played this game Gimmick 2, which Gimmick 1 never came out in the States, and it's kind of Kirby-like and really, really cool. Then I just transitioned. I learned how to make levels. I would go around town and take photos at Home Depot of, patterns that I thought would make good textures. I scanned them, did anything I could. Some of the very first screenshots of Unreal I took myself. And then eventually it was co-developed with Digital Extremes, the guys who did Warframe. Mm-hmm. James Smaltz, good guy. And I had to go back and forth from Ontario, California, connecting through Dallas, Fort Worth to London and Ontario. No, it wasn't London. It was Ontario, but I can't remember the name. Kitchener, Waterloo. And it was just, I worked my ass off for 16 hours a day on the first Unreal. I mean, I didn't start drinking until I was 25. made up for it since.
That's a whole nother story.
It's actually a fun fact is I was doing long distance with my now infamous ex-wife, which you can read about in my book.
I shall.
Yeah. Rule of 3 for comedies. And I was a furious masturbator back then. And so I'd go to after work, I go to the local Quickie Mart and I grab like a skin mag. And over the course of a year and a half, 2 years of going nonstop back and forth to Kitchener, Waterloo, I wound up with a stack of skin mags that was like this high in the rental townhouse that Epic and DE had provided for me. And I to this day want to know the look in the face of the person who had to clean that condo and get rid of all that filth.
Well, there was me poised to say to you, if you got any great stories about when you're working on Unreal, but you kind of just read the script and just thrown it out the window anyway.
Well, it's a fun fact is I had to share a shower, not at the same time, obviously, but with Tim Sweeney and James Schmaltz and Cedric Fiorentino, Inox, who made the infamous Facing Worlds map eventually in Unreal Tournament. And then I eventually wound up with Athlete's Foot from sharing the shower. And then you understand why in universities and dorms, they wear slippers, because it's one of those things that was not fun. Took a while to clear. And then I went to the doctor. The doctor's like, you look like you've had like residual like damage from frostbite. And then I realized when I was a kid in New England in the winter, I delivered newspapers, and I actually did get frostbite a bunch of times. Wow. And that's why I was susceptible to having athlete's foot, which is probably not a conversation you'd think you'd be having today, lads.
No, definitely not. But hey, it's an exclusive. We'll take it. It's absolutely an exclusive.
As Jeff Keighley would say, exclusive.
Oh, exactly. I've got to ask because Unreal was great, but how did you make it? How do you try and make it stand out, Cliff, from Duke Nukem 3D, Doom, Quake, for example? What was your kind of remit and ideas?
I've always been big on the idea of counter programming, right? Like, you look at like, when a rom-com comes out in theaters, and then somebody else is like, we're gonna put an action movie out in the same time frame. And it's like, we looked at Quake. We looked at the fact that, it had that like dingy look to it, dark, cramped quarters. And, Tim Sweeney and the crew added in colored lighting. And so we, leveraged the colored lighting and the fact that the Unreal Engine was very, very good at allowing us. We could make cramped spaces, sure. I mean, the first level I made was, a crashed spaceship and then a mine. And then, but then we could do these expansive outdoor environments. And, these are the things that separated us from Quake. And, the first Unreal, we had no idea what the hell we were doing. And it was just a bunch of different level designers and artists throwing stuff at the wall to see what stuck. And then I came up with the idea of like, okay, I have to make this somewhat of a cohesive narrative. What if Napali is the Bermuda Triangle of the galaxy that has such a strong gravitational pull that it sucks in all sorts of these alien ships, and then you get sucked into it, and then you have to go and explore and find a way to get off the planet. And it just, one of the last things that I said when I made my egress from Epic was remaster the first Unreal in the latest version of the engine, please. Because I think there's a lot of great ideas in that game still to this day. And it's a shame that, the kids these days only know, Unreal as an engine and don't know that, it was a great adventure. But it was a broken multiplayer at first, and then came Unreal Tournament, which absolutely slayed. And we did a banger of a job on that thing.
I loved Unreal Tournament, Cliff. I put my hands up. I haven't played the first game, but Unreal Tournament, for me, it was like, this is online multiplayer madness. Up to
you talking about 2003 or 2004?
Like, I think 2003. I can't quite remember, but I just remember playing it and loving it with my brothers and just playing all around. It's absolutely incredible. So, was there like a big transition to multiplayer a bit more, or what was your sort of view on that FPS from like single to multiplayer?
Well, I mean, we were playing the hell out of Doom World and Quake World, and just learning how to like understand what makes a good multiplayer game fun. And going with my whole philosophy of doing something different, I had the one rule, like, I don't want to do a shotgun. I don't want, and that's where James Schmaltz came up with the idea of the flak cannon. Mm-hmm. Imagine a shotgun where you can ricochet your shots, right? And then, you have an alt fire that's essentially a lobbing of a grenade. And same thing with the rocket launcher. I didn't want to do a typical rocket launcher. I want to do a rocket launcher that was like a Mega Man weapon that you could hold, left mouse and charge up multiple rockets and unleash them, or then unload a salvo of rockets as grenades, and just do different things. We had, the Razor Jack, which, fired spinning blades that could also ricochet. Just, the Stinger, because the fun fact is the first Unreal, I wanted to actually put a nail gun in. Because cool. During those trips to Home Depot, when I was using my digital camera to take photos of the various surfaces there, saw the Power Isle weapon. I was like, these are all weapons. And so I wanted a nail gun in. And then I saw the Quake test demo, and I was like, God damn it, they got to it. And they got Trent Reznor. And, remember the little ammo boxes that said NIN on it? And, he had a nail gun. And that was actually really cool. And so but the Stinger was, based on Teridium crystals, which was, my, name for the, foozle of whatever, was powering everything in that universe, which I'm sorry is still better than unobtainium. That's right. I said it.
Unobtainium from the core.
No, from Avatar.
From Avatar. Oh, yeah, and Avatar as well. 2 films then. But
I love Cameron. I love all of his films. I enjoyed Avatar. I saw Avatar 2. I can't remember a goddamn thing about it.
It's true.
Oh,
that's true.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of people said that too.
Can anybody, like, one of my favorite movies of all time is The Big Lebowski. I think a great film is one that's infinitely quotable, right? And
definitely.
Nobody goes around, quoting Avatar. It's like, people quote Gears all the time. It's a giant worm, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Woo, whole train, coal train runs on whole grain.
It's amazing.
So much.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and then the Unreal Tournament series hit and did well, and then I had an affair that led to the fall of my first marriage.
Right.
I had basically what you can read about it in my book. I basically had what we call a convention girlfriend, going between E3 and DICE in Las Vegas and GDC, and her and I would meet up. She was married. I was married. I was a cheating piece of crap. And then I was like, why am I married? Like, what am I doing here? And then I left my first wife, and she took half of all of my Unreal and Unreal Tournament money. And then out of spite, I wound up making Gears of War. And then here we are.
So I watched an interview with you did a little while ago, and I think one of the lines that you said was your creativeness came from when you were kind of having downtime, having a low moment, etc. And to be fair, let's be honest, Gears is one of my favorites, and it's a lot of people's favorites around the world as well. But I just want to go into that because where did that come from? Because if you look at the game, the universe, the characters, the weaponry, the whole story, the whole universe as a package, did you kind of just wake up one morning and go, I have it all figured out. This is what I want to do. This is what it looks like. Or was it a case that you just had like one element and it kind of, the seed grew from there? How did that kind of spark hit?
Everything that you consume in regards to media is grist for the mill. Books, TV, film, action figures, things like that. And, again, being a child of the 80s, I, with the ex-wife, taking that trip to London and going to the top of St. Paul's Cathedral as the sun set. And I just looked at the architecture and I was like, I don't want to do like the standard, Ron Cobb, Aliens kind of, dystopian kind of Halo architecture. I want something to be beautiful, but then have it all screwed up. And that's where the term destroyed beauty came from. And then I never intended for the characters to be such tanks. We did concept art for it. And the character that modeled them just made them just like, boom. I was like, and then we were like, you know what, let's just go with it. And, I wanted to put a chainsaw on a gun in 1998, actually, for a game I was pitching called Overfiend. So that one didn't go through, but eventually I was like, yeah, no, like the thing about the chainsaw on the gun, right, is like sometimes people are like, you look at focus testing, they're like, oh, the movie was great, but I didn't like the monkey. Or like people who saw Mad Max Fury Road are like, I love that movie, but what was with the blind guy with the flamethrower guitar? And I'm like, that's the best fucking part of the movie.
Yes. Agreed.
That's what makes it unique. And it was showing off the insanity of this post-apocalyptic world. And that's the thing is I had 2 songs I was listening to on rotation. One was three. One was Mad World by Gary Jules. The other one was Evanescence's My Immortal. And the other one was One I Love by Karen Casey. Because as my first marriage was falling, I was in a very dark place. And so I threw myself into work, living in a shitty 1-bedroom apartment. And now I'm in a big dumb house where everything breaks. And somehow the marketing team, I never told anybody, like those are like my go-to songs. And I was a big fan of the idea of contrasting like warlike stuff against sadness. And then during a meeting, like they proposed using Mad World and then getting Joe Kosinski to direct it, who I didn't know who he was at the time, Tron Legacy, Top Gun Maverick, F1. I'm not even a big F1 guy, but like that movie was thoroughly entertaining. And that became, in my opinion, one of the greatest video game trailers and commercials of all time. And I'll never forget being in an Irish pub with a bunch of the Epic employees that were all working on the game, and the commercial came on the TV, and we all just did shots and we were just celebrating, and it was a magical time. And to then bounce back, I moved into a condo in downtown Raleigh. I had a new girlfriend, and everything was coming up roses at the time.
Cliff, was Gears always a third-person game? Or I think I heard that originally it was FPS because
it started first person, and then we started getting like bump mapping and spherical harmonics in the engine. And I was a huge fan of Resident Evil 4, and I was like, let's do third person. Like, this character looks amazing. Like, you want to see him, and I've done enough first person stuff, and I'm a huge fan of the musical Rent and Roger's song, One Song Glory. It's a short song, but he says, one song beyond the cheap colored lights. And I would sing that because, Unreal and Unreal Tournament had the colored lights. And I'm like, I want to do something somber. I became hooked on Band of Brothers. And I was what if we do World War II, but sci-fi? And that was part of the pitch. And then Lee Perry, who's the unsung hero of the Gears of War franchise, showed me a little game called Kill Switch, in which the character could take cover, which was actually a spin-off kind of that old game Winback, in which, and to me, for the character to be able to touch the world like that was very compelling. And so it was basically the perfect storm of everything. And Microsoft, Halo was nowhere in sight. They needed to sell the Xbox 360. So we had, Unreal Engine 3. We had these great tech demos. I had a vision. I had a team that was supporting me, coming up with things like Active Reload and Roadie Run, the Locust and all the monsters, coming from the underground and everything like that. And it hit in the zeitgeist at just the right moment. And it also, Tim Sweeney was very generous in regards to the healthcare at Epic, in regards to bonuses. And once Gears 1 hit, I got a very ample bonus. And then that's why, I was able to pay off my condo when I was living in downtown Raleigh and drowning in a sea of pointless pussy.
What a way to end a sentence. But so just looking in a little bit more detail, you mentioned him already, but like characters like Coltrane, and we know you said there that the designers have basically made these guys absolute units. But did there any inspiration come from any kind of real life characters or real life people that you knew for people like Cole, Phoenix, Baird, those guys?
Well, Phoenix was, kind of the Bruce Willis diehard thing where everything he touches turns to shit. Right. Baird was meant to be the cynical asshole, the cynical engineer, which I think I was projecting my feelings about a lot of the programmers I worked with in hindsight. And Cole was, came from a series of Super Bowl commercials called Terry Tate Office Linebacker. And I'm watching these commercials on my computer, and I'm like looking, some of the other designers are looking over my shoulder. I'm like, I want to go to war with that guy. We wound up casting Lester Spate, because he's just so charismatic and, whoa, that kind
amazing.
Oh, it was great. And Dom was actually inspired by a 3D artist named Danny Rodriguez that I was close friends with at the time at Epic. And I wanted a diverse cast, and now in these, days of bullshit outrage, people would be like, this game is woke. This is DEI. And I'm like, you know what, motherfucker? A lot of people of all different races play video games. Maybe I want all of their money. And maybe, if I represent them, I will get their fucking money. And step 3, profit. And I wanted Dom, Carlos Ferro brought so much heart to the character. Yeah. And it's, I still once in a while, after a beverage, late afternoon, I'll go to YouTube and look up some of the infamous, Gears, heartbreaking cutscenes.
Oh, I can't do it. Don't talk to me about it. I'll get upset.
It's just, I feel vindicated because at the time, I almost swore again there. At the time, people are like, this is just a stupid dude bro shooter, blah, 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 blah. And now I go back and I go to YouTube and I watch like, the Maria scene, Dom sacrificing himself, all of that. And like, I just read the comments and people are like, tears of war. And, EA back in the day had this big, what a lot of the industry has is what I call a Hollywood hard-on, where they want to imitate Hollywood, right? They want to emulate it. It's like video games are interactive, dude. Like, lean into that. And I mean, Kojima's Kojima. Kojima wants to be a film director as much as he wants to be a game designer, and he's a legend, and he can do his own thing. That's fine. Sony's like, here, take all the money. But just feeling that vindication. But I wanted to, I was friends with Joss Whedon at the time, and a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. And the biggest crush on Sarah Michelle Gellar. And if you see my wife, she obviously looks a ton like Sarah Michelle Gellar. So I'm like, clearly I have a type. But Joss told me one time, we were hanging out having a drink, and he said, Buffy suffer, show good. And I wanted to make the audience suffer. And there's more to it than that, but hang on, I gotta get a poll.
You did though. You made us suffer. Let me tell you that much. I lived it the first time, second time, third time.
The first time I had the only time I've ever been dumped in my life was in high school. I was dating a girl named Courtney Ford, she was a fellow drama nerd, and she went on to do Legends of Tomorrow. She's married to Brandon Routh, who's one of the Supermen.
Yep.
And he was on Legends of Tomorrow with her as well. And she dumped my ass. And so we still remained in contact over the years and actually cast her as Maria's voice. And then deep down, I think that bad part of me was like, and I'm going to have you killed, bitch. And the thing was, the whole, what the Locusts were doing was a thinly veiled statement on the torture we were seeing at Guantanamo Bay. And Gears was also a thinly veiled metaphor for the Bush administration's war for oil in the Middle East. And, people are also like, don't make your games political. I'm like, did you play BioShock? Do you know who the fuck Ayn Rand is, you fucking idiots? Like, come on, man. Like, anyway, there's a lot there. But I think, make your games personal whenever possible. And B, if you can make it political, don't be too on the nose. Be a little bit subtle about it. And then, I've had so many people be like, oh, wait, emulsion was basically oil? I'm like, duh. Like, hello.
Some of us thought that was obvious. But look, going back to what you said about some of the negative comments, I found, looking at a lot of YouTube videos, reviews, and all the stuff that we kind of look at, not just newer games, older games, classic games, they all have their trolls, their negative comments, et cetera, et cetera. I always find, and I'm sure we find, Adrian as well, that there's a ton of people out there, probably the majority are the ones that aren't commenting those negative things, that are watching it, soaking it up, experiencing it, and really enjoying it. And some comment, but I think the people that have negative things to say, they're the ones that are kind of more trigger happy with the comments.
I call it the burnt peanut theory. Like, for me, being a somewhat public figure for 25 plus years, somebody would be like, I loved this game, I love your work, blah, 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 blah. Hades Town's amazing, I liked your memoir, Scrapper's great. That's my comic book about a badass dog superhero, by the way. Did that with Image.
Thank you.
It's on Amazon. But there's, all it takes is that one asshole, as Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, who's like Magnolia Fan 43 or something like that. They go to his door and they punch him in the fucking face. And it's like, it takes such balls to be behind your keyboard and to talk that shit. It's like, dude, I've been called every word possible on the internet since 1993. Like, come at me. And that's one thing, becoming friends with Ice-T. And on the front of the book is this quote saying it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Is that, Ice will like call him out. He'll quote tweet somebody who comes at them and he will just dumpster them. And that's honestly, it's like, if someone's going to be that mean, I believe in coming back at them 5 times as hard. And my wife gets paranoid about it because she's like, these people could track us down. I'm like, you know what? F them. Like, okay, maybe I'll get a Glock. I'm coming to my front door then, motherfucker. It's one of those things. It's far easier to criticize than create, and it's not cool to like things online. Like it's and we're in
this
the
is the
world.
truth.
We're in the world of rage bait. On YouTube, on Twitter, on TikTok. It's like whatever gets a rise out of anybody. You look at personalities like Candace Owens and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and they just say the dumbest shit possible to get engagement. And that's what it's all about. On that note, the internet is united in their love of K-pop Demon Hunters, which is my movie of the year. I'm obsessed with it.
There isn't a moment in my house, and I'll give you a little story here. I went out to work this morning. Okay, my kids are off school. Okay, my wife's at home at the moment, and I got 3 boys. I go out this morning, and it's halfway through the film. I come back about 2:30, something like that, to come in, and guess what? It's on again. It hasn't been off the whole time. Yeah, it's literally taken over the whole world in about a week. It's gone from nowhere to everywhere.
Well, see, anyway. Here's the thing. Like, okay, so the comparison that I've been seeing is Pixar put out that movie Elio or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All I know is it's like a kid with one eye. Oh, okay, fine, whatever. We're a long way from Monsters Inc. And then Sony just comes in, drops this like in the dark on Netflix. And I'm not even that big of a K-pop fan, but I love, divas. I love Britney, I love Taylor, et cetera, et cetera. Katy Perry's kind of fallen off lately, but we'll put that over here. But then Sony Pictures Animation, like their quality, their style, like you look at Into the Spider-Verse and how unique it looks. And K-pop Demon Hunters isn't full comic book, but they leveraged so many anime tropes in it. And, they weren't afraid to make all 3 of the girls beautiful. They weren't afraid to make all 3 of the girls goofy. And the songs are all bangers. Is that what the kids are saying? Or are they saying slaps?
Yeah, bangers. That's it.
I don't know. No cap. Yeah, I just I go down the rabbit hole of YouTube videos of it, and we've watched it like 2.5 times so far. I love a good musical, right? Like that's how I stumbled into becoming a producer on Broadway. My wife and I, we've watched The Greatest Showman like 15 times, and if you don't, there's a certain type of person that just can't vibe with the idea of a musical, and that's fine if that's not your thing. But I love to, there's this college basketball coach that died a while back named Jimmy Valvano, and he did a speech at the ESPY Awards, sports awards. And as he was on his last legs, he said, do 3 things every day. If you can laugh, think, and cry, do that 7 days a week, you're living a good life. And honestly, like watching some of the numbers in K-pop Demon Hunters actually makes me misty-eyed because it's just that fucking good of a movie. And I love that the world is finally catching on to just, watching good shit instead of Skibbity Toilet.
I think it's coming around though, isn't it? That's a great example. We're fed up with the stuff that you've just kind of explained, and Kate, I
think
is an example.
I think the Pixar look is feeling a little played out these days. For a while it was DreamWorks face, like, and then it became what the term they coined is bean mouth, where it's like that, like weird smile. And I actually liked Turning Red, but that was a total example of nonstop bean mouth. And people are catching onto it. People are dumb until they're not, and that's one of the reasons I love trying to do stand-up comedy and largely failing. The wisdom of the crowd, as they say. The crowd is dumb until it's not.
I'm going to squeeze one more in before I let Adrian get a word in edgeways, because I've got to just ask you one more question because I want to get your view on this. So Gears obviously is still really strong. The franchise is still really strong, but it's obviously long been exclusively an Xbox title, Microsoft title, etc. But obviously we've got Reloaded coming out, which is going to be on PlayStation as well. When you were first creating the game, console wars was the whole thing. These days, obviously, you're seeing a lot more exclusives kind of changing hands. I think this is a great idea. We think this is a great idea. What's your kind of thought process on brands kind of swapping all these ideas? Should it just be kind of like an open playing field, let it all go, or should they hold on to exclusives? What do you think about that?
Exclusives existed for the sole purpose of getting people to, buy the console. And this sounds very sexist, so bear with me. But I used to use the example of the husband who wants to buy the new console, and the wife's like, "We're not spending $300-400 on that thing." And then he's like, "Look at how good the graphics are. Look at how great this is." And she's like, "Fine."
Sounds like my wife.
Again, it's a stereotype, but it's, sometimes stereotypes are true. But Microsoft and Phil Spencer, I believe, are gunning to be the Netflix of games, where they're completely platform agnostic. And the hardware is not even necessarily the important thing. It's basically, getting eyeballs, making Game Pass, getting people to subscribe to Game Pass. That's their MO right now. And, it's the ultimate subscription model. And, everything is a subscription these days, to the point where it's actually exhausting. And, the fact that I tweeted this a while back, and I'm not calling it X because Elon Musk is a douche, is the fact that more eyeballs on my legacy are good. The fact that more people can become fans of Gears. It's funny where, we have GalaxyCon in town this weekend, which is, kind of our, local Comic-Con, and a bunch of celebs here. And my wife actually put together a costume of Anya, because Anya was initially designed. Wow. Anya was initially designed after the girl I had the affair with that led to the fall of my first marriage. Ooh. And then, I shit you not, I have a thing for blondes. What can I say? And then towards Gears 3, when I was seriously dating Lauren, and they were updating the design of Anya, and I wanted her to be in combat and be a badass, that was who she was largely designed after. So it's going to be like full Ouroboros. The circle is complete. To see my wife this weekend, in an Anya costume going around the convention center. And I love it when she does cosplay and she does her Twitch streams, because for so long she's been just Cliff's wife. And, she is finding her feet after all these years. I mean, that's how I found her in the first place. She won this Miss Video Game tournament with against 300 other girls, and then showed up on all the blogs. And I was like, holy shit, that's my new girlfriend.
Yeah, love at first sight.
It really was, dude. And then I found her on MySpace, and I actually emailed her, and she's like, "Who emails?" I'm like, "Old dudes." And we emailed back and forth nonstop. She was with somebody, I was with somebody, and then we're both just like, "Yeah, no, we're done. Like, you're the person." And this August we'll have been married 13 years. And
amazing. Congratulations.
She's my forever person. And, I always say marriage is a garden. You got to tend to it. And communication is everything. And often butt stuff.
I love
these little bits at the end of each sentence.
So brilliant.
Soundbite gold right here.
I've got to ask, Gears of War, have you got a favorite title in the series? And also, was it hard for you to almost let go a little bit, let other people sort of take the reins on a little bit after you kind of...
I think my favorite was Gears 3, because I think as much as we lost a little bit of the aesthetic of Gears 1 in regards to losing that kind of desaturated look, which kind of defined an entire console generation. Like, everybody was aping that look that Jerry O'Flaherty came up with. I just wanted a little bit of color to bleed into the franchise. Get it? And so I think, letting go of the reins, it's a fun fact, that Epic sold the rights, of course, of Gears to Microsoft. And, Tim Sweeney and Mark Rain, they were at my wedding, for Christ's sake. And they didn't let me know. And I got a call from Phil Spencer himself telling me about it. And, it's kind of sad. I didn't see a dime off of that. And I think the Coalition does really good work. I just feel like, and I've said this in other interviews, the series is missing a little bit of the heart that we had in 1 and 3. And I'm friends with the writer of Gears 5. And I told him right out, I was like, Tom, that whole choice at the end of Gears 5 was fucking stupid. Like, you just painted yourself into a narrative. When Dom died, that hit. And that mattered. And then we made grown men cry, right? And so now you're doing this whole like arbitrary choice bullshit. And it's so funny because Rod Ferguson like actually got, the best producer in the business, good dude, was also at my wedding. He actually got a Gears tattoo. and he had undying loyalty, you know, to ship Gears 4 and 5. Then he pieced off to work on Diablo. And I'm like, dude, no judgment, but, you know, you're going to get a tattoo of the game you worked on. It's like Steven Spielberg getting an E.T. tramp stamp. Like, okay, dude, like whatever gets you through the day. And it's one of those things, you know, the tattoos, though, you know, I like money, obviously, as I'm sitting in my big dumb house. But, and I also was lucky enough to invest in Oculus, which was the greatest investment in my entire adult life. Go Zuck. They're giving dividend. They're giving dividends now, so that's awesome. Where's it going with this? Oh yeah, so you know, I'm happy to see the franchise live on. And the thing is, apart from the money, to make something and be involved in something that people actually get tattoos in their body from is the biggest form of flattery imaginable. Like Gears Inc. became like a thing. You know, there's people out there with Jazz Jackrabbit tattoos. There's people out there with Unreal and Unreal Tournament tattoos. You know, being a co-producer on Hadestown, there's a ton of Hadestown Broadway tattoos out there. And that's my thing. Even, you know, as much as LawBreakers, when I had Boss Key, you know, floundered and didn't, you know, find its legs, there's still a few people that have LawBreakers tattoos out there. And that's one of the biggest things is whenever, you know, I have the best kind of fame imaginable, because I only get recognized once every week or two in public, and especially in a small town like Raleigh. But if I ever meet somebody and they're like, I have a Gears tattoo, it's like my wife has her brand, where her brand is like this cute little gargoyle character. One of her fans has a Gears tattoo on his calf, but he also got her little gargoyle like above the gear. And like, that's just like, it's so goddamn cool. And, you know, I mean, fandom, you know, ultimately often turns sour, becomes toxic. But, you know, in the moment, you know, savor it and enjoy it. Right.
Absolutely. I mean, I haven't got a tattoo. I might consider it, but if I did, it would be a Gears one, without a shadow of a doubt. But
mine all means something to me. This is the Michelangelo quote. I'm still learning. This is you know, drama because Broadway. And this is the Patton Oswalt quote from his Special Annihilation, where his late wife, he's, you know, is having a hard time before she passed, and he's like, how do I deal with this, Michelle? And she said to him, it's chaos. Be kind. And that's my philosophy for the world. You know, don't be a dick, especially on social media.
Absolutely. Well, I adore it. I adore the series. My favorites are 1 to 3. No surprises there. But yeah, I'll always love it, and I know a lot of people that do as well.
Yes, cool. Where can I get that?
Oh yeah,
my wife made them.
That was very, like a Gears of War flask.
I have got some Gears stuff. I've got behind me actually, top shelf. I have the amazing soundtrack from the first Gears by Kevin Ripple, who we interviewed as well, and I've got the initial release in the tin as well. So I feel
to this day I feel bad about kind of leaving Kevin in the dust, because he was amazing. Because, you know, with Gears 2, I wanted to go full Michael Bay, and that's when we brought God, what was his name? Steve Bloom? No, that's the voice actor. We just, it's been years. Brought in a new composer, Steve Jablonsky. Yeah, I believe. Yeah. And I wanted to go full, you know, bombastic, you know, Hollywood, you know, like if Gears 1 was Alien, I wanted Gears 2 to be Aliens. And, you know, then it just went fully off the fucking rails. But the whole thing about, you know, Dom and Maria was, I guess it was, for me, deep down, it was a statement on heartache and the girl that broke my heart back in the day. And the fact it was also a statement on that woman, Terry Schiavo, in the States. If you recall, she got in an accident and she was in a vegetative state, and the parents wouldn't let her go. And I'm a very absolutist in regards to, I mean, having worked with programmers as long as I have. And I was like, sometimes you have to know when to let go. And Dom, you know, had to do one of the most horrible things imaginable and put down his own goddamn wife. And that's, I had a lot to unpack during that time period. That's for damn sure.
Without a doubt.
On that note.
Yeah. On that note, Cliff, Hollywood. We've got to talk about the Gears movie. What do you know about it? Is it happening? What actors are involved? Are you involved? Do you want it to happen? We'd love to know everything you know about the movie.
I'm not involved, and I'm not angry. It just makes me kind of sad because you look at The Last of Us. Season 2 is a little bit uneven, but Neil Druckmann being involved in it. You look at Todd Howard being involved in the really good Fallout series. Having the original creators of this content involved attaches legitimacy to it.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, Microsoft has never reached out to me. I've said this, and like every other day I get somebody going like, "Make Gears great again." I'm like, we've been over this. It's like a meme at this point. And I'm like, dude, my phone's on. Like, I'm available. And I think it would make a great movie. I think I used to say back in the day that I don't think a wrestler would make a great, Marcus or whatever. But I think, Batista has openly said that he would he literally like cosplayed as Marcus at one point on his social media feed. And he proved his gravitas in Guardians of the Galaxy, as well as the last Blade Runner film. And then Knock at the Cabin also. He's a damn good actor. And that's the thing, is also because wrestling is staged, and you kind of have to be not only a great physical person, but also an actor. And on that note, Alexa Bliss is dreamy. Anyway, I'm allowed my professional crushes.
Yeah, aren't we all? I mean, yeah, amazing to kind of. I mean, look, we just tag the hell out of Microsoft every day until it happens. Come on, till the phone rings. Let's just get everybody.
For the record, I said in another interview, if Microsoft was smart, they would have me consult. And even if I only played a build once in a while and gave a minor amount of feedback, the PR hit alone would be worth it. And then the rage bait, clickbait quote that came out was like, Cliff says if Microsoft was smart, they'd have him work on Gears. I'm like, that's not what I said, you assholes. And my entire career has been a lot of that. Whereas, I'm friends with Kojima. And it's like, I was like, I love Kojima's games. I think they're amazing. That for me, at least, the cutscenes are a little bit long. Bleszinski slams Kojima's games. Says the cutscenes are so long. I'm like, I didn't say that, you assholes. But that's the world in which we live.
Yeah. Well, would you want to see a movie then? You kind of in the thumbs up. So even if you weren't involved, would you still like to see what happens, really? Or
as long as I get invited to the fucking premiere.
Yeah.
You guys ever been to a movie premiere?
I haven't actually.
Yes.
No. Oh, James has. There you go.
Yeah.
The vibe is so crazy. So back before Tencent heavily invested in Epic and bought my freedom from having to work with combative programmers on a day-to-day basis, the person who was interested in possibly purchasing Epic was a guy named Thomas Tull, who owned and ran Legendary Pictures. So he and I became buddies. His jet is just so good. It's like some Tony Stark shit. And that's how I got hooked on the private jet thing. Don't ever do it. It'll ruin you. And so I got to go to the premiere of The Hangover. Actually, I brought Jade Raymond to the premiere of The Hangover. And I was seated next to Meadows Soprano and Turtle from Entourage. And Jade and I, we never dated because, she was happily married. I just respect her, and obviously she's lovely. And then I got to go to take Lauren to the premiere of Pacific Rim. And it's such a funny thing when you go to these premieres, especially at the Dolby Theater. They set up the stanchions, and all the looky-loos gather around. And I put on like a Armani suit. I put her in like an Hervé Léger dress. I get her. We have these two stylists that styled her at her wedding. They get her all dolled up, and you come around the corner at the red carpet, and people assume you're somebody. And my wife is notoriously shy. And I remember grabbing her hand. I'm like, walk right in like you own the fucking place. And people are like taking photos of us and filming us, and I'm like,
brilliant.
And that's one thing I always say, whenever possible in life, make your life like a movie. It's not always about the money. For me, it's like one time we went from, one pub to another, and we got caught in the rain, and we just didn't have an umbrella, and we just accepted it, got soaked, And then I just gave her a big old smooch in the middle of the rain. And it's all about creating those memories. And that's what I think my career, my games have done for a lot of people. And, you know, it's so flattering, apart from the tattoos, when people are like, I met my significant other online playing your game. And I'm like, it's so beautiful. And it's actually a fun story I've told him. God damn it. Breakfast. Morty. I went to San Diego Comic-Con 2 years ago, and I was signing for Scrapper.
Buy it now. It's out.
Yep. Hoping it'll be an animated series and a game, fingers crossed. And I was sitting there with my writing partner, Alex DeCampi, and this woman came up. She must have been like mid to late 50s, and she's crying. And she looks at me and says, Gears of War saved my life.
Wow.
And I was like, I'll sign whatever. And then I start fucking crying. And then I'm like, do you want a hug? And I gave her a hug. And it was just fucking beautiful. Like, I mean, that's the power to impact people and the power to, you know, save lives, apparently. And that's, you know, it's also tons of the military people that I've met would pass time in like Afghanistan playing Gears. And it's just,
it's amazing.
It's a multifaceted thing. And, you know, you create because you want to, make money, but you want to affect people and make memories and touch them.
You left Epic Games, Cliff, and you took a big, bold decision to start your own company, Boss Key Productions. That must have been exciting, nervous. You know, you could be your own boss. You could do whatever you wanted. Epic, obviously, Epic was huge for you. Gears of War was huge. You released LawBreakers. Are you happy to talk about that stage of your life briefly?
Yeah, it's fine. The first 2 years were a blast. But then after that, it just became a slog. Right. I, had enough money in the bank. I didn't take a salary for 2 years, and I was making enough interest to live comfortably. And my problem, I wanted to be the CEO. I wanted to be the control freak. Right. And I realized in order to be a good CEO, you have to be an absolute sociopath. And I'm too much of an empath. I've said this in other interviews. Like, I got to know my employees. I got to know their spouses, got to know their kids, their pets. I would host crawfish boils at my house, multiple ones, and I'm still friends with a good chunk of them to this day. And that's the thing is, like, hiring somebody is so amazing, but having to fire somebody, it feels, I'd imagine, equally as bad as the person doing the firing as the person getting fired. Because it was a horrible, horrible feeling, the handful of people I had to fire. And I think LawBreakers was a really, really good shooter. It just got stomped on by Overwatch because I underestimated the fact that we have an entire generation of young people that, love that kind of anime look, right? I mean, you look at, K-pop Demon Hunters, and that anime's influence on the West is tremendous. Yeah. And then with Radical Heights, we were going for our own twist on Battle Royale, and then the powers that be at Epic were like, yeah, no, we got Fortnite. And then hackers on 4chan decided to hack the hell out of Radical Heights. And then being CEO and seeing every month what the company has in the bank and watching it go tick, 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 it's horrifying. And being responsible for these people and their families, I never ever want to do that again. So right now I'm happy consulting, but it was nice having a studio in downtown Raleigh where we could walk to lunch or walk to a pub. But there were so many like dark, dreary Monday mornings where I go to lunch by myself, have a glass of wine, and just sit there and be like, why the fuck am I doing this? And then, again, I had to do dual duty, triple duty of being CEO, designer, and the face of the company. And it's, at Epic, I was design director. So, I was not only designing Gears, I was working on Bulletstorm, Shadow Complex, Infinity Blade, so many different things, and being the face of the company at the same time. I was just hopped up on caffeine and Red Bull the entire time. And so I'm shocked I didn't have a heart attack during that time period. But you know, it is what it is. I made a good amount of money to live comfortably, and you know, the time came right when I met the love of my life, and I made just enough money to be comfortable that I moved on. But you know, my agent's urging, you know, starting Boss Key, I had to see if I could do it myself. And you know, 3.5 years for a game dev studio, it's not a bad run. And now I'm just like, you know, just consulting, and you know, did my book, did my comic, and trying stand-up comedy, and largely failing at it.
It's tough.
It's so goddamn hard.
It's amazing. You've had a whirlwind of a career, Cliff, and the honesty has been so nice, and we do appreciate your honest answers today. It's been an amazing interview. We've got a few little quick-fire questions right at the end, if that's okay, but you know, what an amazing journey you've had, really. I've got to ask, you mentioned Fortnite a second ago. I read rumors, and I don't know if this is true or not, that you helped name the game. Is that complete rubbish, or do you ever work on Fortnite, or is that?
Yeah. No, I worked on Fortnite. I approved the art style. I approved the build system, and I helped name it. The fact is, you know, like you built a fort, and you held out until night with the Save the World version before they went full battle royale and step 3 profit. And the thing was, you know, at Epic, we always wanted to have the trademarks for whatever names we came up with. And the thing was, Fortnite spelled properly was taken. So I was like, well, let's try NITE. And then that was available. And then they trademarked that. I still hate the logo, though, but that's neither here nor there. Oh, the K-pop Demon Hunters logo is so cool, though. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm like a teenage girl. And my God,
K-pop is going to follow me to my grave, I tell you.
My 14-year-old niece, I love her dearly, and she's an absolute sweetheart. She won't fucking watch it yet. I'm like, Riley, watch the goddamn movie. Trust me, because she like loves, you know, Billie Eilish. She loves Taylor Swift, all that. She loves Avril Lavigne. We took her to like Avril Lavigne a couple times, and I was just like, watch it. Anyway, I don't want any kids. Thank you guys for procreating. I love kids, but I think they're parasitic sociopaths. So that's my TED Talk. But yeah. A couple more like questions, final questions.
Yeah. So top 3 games of all time, yours personally. What that you've ever played? Top 3.
Tetris, Mario, and the first Zelda.
Oh. Wow, big Nintendo fan.
You fit right in here.
The other tattoo I was considering would be the childhood nickname that I had when they would ridicule me in middle school, which they called me Nintendo Boy.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, we had a computer lab where I'd go play Oregon Trail on an Apple IIc. Showing my age.
Wow.
And there's a Far Side cartoon, one panel, where it's like this kid's playing games and the parents are looking at him and thinking like the help wanted ads, you know, wanted video game player, you know, $100,000 a year. And like somebody taped that up on the door to the computer lab and wrote my name on it. And I'm like, who's laughing now, bitch? Like all the, you know, we have, you know, pro gamers that are making 6+ figures, like, you know, game devs, you know, driving Lamborghinis and Ferraris and McLarens. Like the nerds fucking won. And that's one of the last lines of my book is be nice to a nerd, because one day you're probably going to be working for one.
I love it. And they're 3 unbelievably classic games. Do you like the current Zelda games, Cliff? I have to ask. I'm a massive fan of this series personally.
I don't like the latest ones. I'm going to be honest.
Okay.
The weapon degradation was a deal breaker for me.
Yeah, no, that is definitely, yeah, it's controversial.
You got the Master Sword. 3 hits later, broke.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you're not wrong. Look, really appreciate your time. Such an honor to have you on the show, and like
unbelievable.
Yeah, me and James loved it. We always ask our guests one final question. It's a bit of a silly question.
I feel like I'm on Hot Ones.
If you could share a few drinks with any video game character, could be any character in any video game, who would you choose and why?
Boogerman.
Boogerman.
That's a great answer. You're not going to get that from anybody else.
We've never had that before.
It's a pick and flicking adventure.
Brilliant answer.
Side joke. Well, if I could have dinner or drinks with anybody in Hollywood, it'd be Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Like apparently they totally dumpstered Trump like in the latest episode, and I've been looking up at YouTube clips of it, and these guys are fucking fearless. They will go after everybody, and I have so much respect for them. And yeah, it's one of those things. Like, you look at animation real quick before I go, and it's an evergreen thing. The Simpsons has been going for 35 years at this point. You look at Rick and Morty, with the infinite universes, is going to keep going. Justin Roiland's a friend of mine. All the allegations against him in regards to the accusations in regards to the girl he was dating at the time. He was supposed to come to Disneyland VIP with us that next day. Apparently, the musician who shall not be named he was dating went crazy, put 2 charges against him. But then the receipts came out where he was sliding into the DMs of underage girls, and he wasn't being too explicit, but it's like, dude, what are you doing? And I'll always love the dude. I think he's really talented. But the thing about animation is it can just keep going, and it's relatively cheap to produce. It's just like horror films in regards to, you look at the margins. It's like, look at my restaurants and pizza. It costs nothing to make a pizza, and then you charge, $12 for it. Step 3, profit. I mean, you start thinking about finance in a different way once you start understanding business and finance. So that's okay on that note.
No.
Yep. No, but
no,
look,
obviously, Cliff,
yep.
you mentioned it earlier. You're now involved in comics, stand-up, you've been theatre, video game consulting. I mean, where's the best place for people to keep up to date what you're doing? Is it Twitter still, would you say? That's a good place, isn't it? And Facebook, possibly?
It's still Twitter. My public Facebook has actually been really, really chill. The engagement there is really good on public Facebook. And everyone's been really nice on there.
There you go. Good.
Whereas once in a while on Twitter, like about once a month, I get some total cunt. And I can say that because I have Irish friends. And it's such a crispy word. I think Louis C.K. did a bit about it. It just pops, just cunt, like it's more succinct than douchebag,
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, Twitter, the real CliffyB, and I'm on there, every day, responding, and trying to be kind. It's chaos, be kind. And my book's out. If you have a chance, I co-produced the final Broadway production of Terrence McNally's Frankie and Johnny and the Claire de Lune. I co-produced the Broadway production of Ms. Doubtfire, which I think is actually playing in the West End right now.
Yeah, I think it's in London right now.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so it's really good. Go see it. And then I co-produced the German production of Moulin Rouge. But my big moment after my studio folded and the internet thought it was fucking hilarious, and the hit pieces came out. By the way, that was as my dog, Teddy, that's my shrine to him behind me, as he was declining, and then he died. So my dog died, and my studio died, and the internet was putting out hit pieces on YouTube. Fuck you guys.
Yeah.
And then to be involved with Hadestown and to go see opening night, and then to see it nominated for 8 Tonys. Wow. and win Best Musical, and then to be there at Radio City Music Hall and to see it win. That was another fuck you. So you know what? Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years.
This is not your first rodeo. Cliff, you're a badass. I love you, man. And your games, your career, your legacy, etc. It's great. And it's been just a pleasure and a privilege just sharing some stories with you and talking to you. So
thanks, lads. I always say it's a good interview when it flies by. And tonight I'm going to try Crazy Train because R.I.P. Ozzy.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Karaoke for the win. Later, lads.
See ya.